Test 1, 2, 3. Okay, we're starting in about 15, 20 seconds. Good morning or good evening, early birds. Good morning if you're on the other side of the world. All right. Cheers. Good evening. It is 7 o'clock here in the northeast of the United States, and this is the Tibet Center, Kunchab-Tarduling, a Buddhist meditation and study center located in New York City and northern New Jersey under the direction of His Eminence Chabje Ling Rinpoche and also under the direction of Rato Kensur Thupten Lundup, also known as Geshe Nikki Vreeland. This is a twice-weekly presentation of the Buddha Dharma, specifically Stages on the Path to Enlightenment, LAM Chenmo of Tsong-kha-pa. Any problems with the picture, the sound, etc., text me or Mr. Smith immediately. If there's anyone for whom you wish us to pray for when we do Sutra, the recollection of the three jewels, place their names in the chat box or comment box, whatever you call it, as soon as possible. All the prayers that we say are on the website. In the FAQ section, scroll down to prayers. So we'll have, we'll tag the program after the prayers, and then we'll see what we do. Okay, so far I'm getting out, I think. I'm pretty sure. Prayer for the spreading of the teachings throughout the length and breadth of the West. By the force of the blessings of the non-fallacious three precious gems, and of the truth of our pure, selfless wishes, may the precious Buddhist teachings flourish and spread to the expanse of all areas throughout the length and breadth of the West, for all the people living here together with their near ones who have engaged in the teachings and have faith and respect for them. May all conditions adverse to their practice of the pure Dharma be dispelled, and an excellent collection of favorable conditions increase like the waxing moon. And especially for those who work on methods to accomplish the flourishing and spreading of the victorious one's teachings, which are the source of benefit and happiness. May they never be oppressed by masses of interference and adverse conditions, and may this spontaneously happen just as we have hoped and wished. The Heart Sutra. Thus have I heard once. The Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of the Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a big gathering of great monks and great bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi which examines the dharmas called profound illumination, and at the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara, the bodhisattva, Mahasattva, looking at the profound practice of transcendent knowledge, saw the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Then, through the inspiration of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to Avalokiteshvara, how should those noble ones learn who wish to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge? And Avalokiteshvara answered, Venerable Shariputra, whoever wishes to follow the profound practice of transcendent knowledge should look at it like this, seeing the five skandhas and their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness itself is form, emptiness is not separate from form is not separate from emptiness. In the same way, feeling, discriminating awareness, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Thus all the dharmas are empty and have no characteristics. They are unborn and unceasing, they are not impure. Pure, they neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, since there is emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no discriminating awareness, no compositional factors, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no objects of mind, no quality of sight, no quality of hearing, no quality of smelling, no quality of tasting, no quality of sensing, no quality of thought, no quality of mind consciousness. There are no nidanas from ignorance to old age and death, nor the wearing out. There is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no ending of suffering, and no path, no wisdom, no attainment, no non-attainment. Therefore, since there is no attainment, the bodhisattvas abide by means of transcendent knowledge. And since there is no obscurity of mind, they have no fear. They transcend falsity and pass beyond the bounds of sorrow. All the Buddhas who dwell in the past, present, and future by means of transcendent knowledge, fully and clearly awaken to unsurpassed, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of transcendent knowledge, the mantra of deep insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for there is no deception. In transcendent knowledge, the mantra is proclaimed, Tayata Om Gate Gate Paragate Parasam Gate Bodhisoha. Or Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva, Mahasattva, should learn profound transcendent knowledge. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, profound, transcendent knowledge should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Shariputra and Avalokiteshvara, that whole gathering in the world, with its gods, humans, Asuras, and Gandharvas, their hearts full of joy, praised the words of the Blessed One. A refuge and Bodhisattva vow, which we recite 3 times, as usual. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. With the wish to free all beings, I shall always go for refuge to the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha until I reach full enlightenment. Enthused by wisdom and compassion today in the Buddha's presence, I generate the mind for full awakening for the benefit of all sentient beings. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain and dispel the miseries of the world. May all the pains of living creatures ripen solely upon myself, and through the might of the Bodhisattva Sangha, may all beings experience happiness. May the teachings, which are the sole medicine for suffering and the origin of every joy, be materially supported and honored and abide for a very long time. I prostrate to Manjagosha, through whose kindness wholesome minds ensue, and I prostrate to my spiritual masters, through whose kindness I develop. And now, as usual, prayer for the swift return of Rato Chungla Rinpoche, written and recommended for recitation by His Holiness Dalai Lama, on the website. Exalted wisdom of all victors gathered in a drop, sole refuge manifest in the form of the one wearing saffron robes, Guru Lozang Tubuang Dorje Chang, please bear witness here today that our prayers may be fulfilled. We beseech the great torch of doctrine, accomplishing from long ago the vast waves of aspirational prayers, Lord of speech of the Victor Lozang's teachings, spreading them to the ends of the earth by means of explanation and practice. Though holding the commitment, I will invite all beings to be my guests in unsurpassed great awakening, yet you have withdrawn the activities of the form body that serves the welfare of others. Is that worthy of the supreme among beings, the Bodhisattvas? Though impossible for you till cyclic existence's end to abandon your commitment to liberate all beings, we beseech the new son of Nirmanakaya to swiftly return from the realm of Dharmakaya, brought forth by bodhicitta drawn by 7 steeds. Having reached the far limits of scholarship, religious life, and goodness, please come swiftly as an unrivaled supreme emanation, full holder of the sage's teachings and wish-fulfilling jewel. Return as the glory of Lozang Tenpe. Magnificent truth of the 3 precious jewels, Mahakala, Karmayam, and Srimata Devi, and the ocean of Dharma protectors, may you spontaneously fulfill our wish, the swift blossoming of the reincarnation's fresh moonlight face. So, tagging this tonight, of course, it's 2 things. First, we're going to have practical Buddhism. This is Professor Kenneth Lieberman, Dr. Lieberman, an unusual being, very well. He wrote a book. He's the translator of the dialogue between the wisdom and the reifying habit by the Panchen Lama. He also speaks several languages. He's an emeritus professor of sociology at University of Oregon, and he's also a translator and visiting professor at Sera University, Sera Monastery. He's part-time resident there. Speaks Tibetan, speaks Aborigine, speaks Southern Italian dialect, and he's from Beverly Hills. Ooh, now there's a lifestyle, a life story. Anyway, it's called Practical Buddhism. I read from this before. So that's the first part. The second part of the class will be the chapter 17. What are we negating to get out? What do we get rid of in our minds to get the heck out of suffering and bring other beings along with us? So, this practical Buddhism is how you apply these teachings, and he's well versed. He's a good teacher. He also wrote a wonderful book on debate, which is very complicated. I don't recommend it yet because I didn't finish reading it, or at least going through it carefully. It's very technical. He's quite a guy, in other words. This is from this book, Practical Buddhism, Living Everyday Life, and he's talking about Los Angeles, California, and the red lights and driving and the frustration that occurs when you drive. Has that happened to anyone here? Or the frustration, I can write one about the subway, but we'll leave that alone. This is page 95 of this book, Practical Buddhism. The No Honking Challenge. As a native of Los Angeles, I've spent much of my life waiting at red lights. As a teenager in the 1960s, I used to marvel at how many dozens and hundreds of red lights I would be caught up with on any given day. Everybody drives everywhere there, so how many red lights does it take to exceed the limits of sanity? Midtown traffic especially was a major challenge to the hormones of a teenager. Some days I would try to count them in order to see if I could reach 100. The red lights of Los Angeles are one of the worst features of the city, disqualifying it from a place where I would reside permanently, despite being a loving native. He lives in Baja California, Mexico. He surfs every day. He's a yoga practitioner, which we'll hear from later. The traffic of today renders these red lights of the yesteryear the halcyon days. What were then simple two-way lights now are more usually 4- and 5-way traffic flows, and one could write a short poem in the time it takes for a signal to run from one green light to the next. Some of the corners deserve a place in Charlie Chaplin's classic movie Modern Times. There are so many cars that operate in these inexorable, I'm having trouble with language. It's time to leave. Time to get a replacement. Inexorable flows that they have designed most of the newer districts of, quote, the Southland for the cars only, ignoring the needs of pedestrians. Yes, you can't cross the street. Southern Orange County and northern San Diego County are great places to live if one is an automobile, but they are no places for pedestrians. It is not the length of the waiting among the intensive flows of sun-reflecting rear-view windows that is the difficulty. It's the number of times each day that one must do the waiting. Each corner offers its own version of eternity throughout the Southland. Very funny. If the 1960s required patience, today one has to be a bodhisattva to arrive at one's destination in a good mood. Have you all been there? If one fights it, one will become a nervous wreck. Like mosquitoes, its nefarious effects upon the nervous system are cumulative. If tantric practice involves the use and control of one's vital energies, by what method can one use self-control to turn this cavalcade of red lights into the path? It is said that, quote, the method half of Tibetan Buddhism, the other half is wisdom, rests squarely upon the dual practice of taming one's anger and generating an eagerness to assist each person one meets. The root cause of all our troubles is the untamed mind. In the case of taming anger, the key is a mind over matter, psyche over body minimization of one's impatience. You have to fight your impatience. Yeah, you got it. Can the use of LA's red light signal serve as a basis for practicing patience? It is easy to practice patience when one is relaxing at a remote resort, but it is better when one can practice amidst the tumult of the crowd. The key is to take responsibility for not generating enmity or anger towards others, and instead to generate support and affirmation for each person one encounters. Bodhisattva mindset. There may be no better cauldron for forging one's patience than the red traffic lights of LA. I think some New Yorkers will give him a run for that. We should have a debate. Where do you get the more patience? Why is there so much rushing around in Los Angeles? A single week there leaves me exhausted, and the traffic is the worst part of it. While LA drivers there move more safely than drivers in most other cities, they make abundant use of their horns. Their car horns, that is. Never mind. Bad joke. Everyone is constantly blasting the horn, not to avoid danger, but most commonly as instruments for moral recrimination. And why is it so difficult for people to allow a path for a car that is attempting to merge on the freeway? It is not as if one never enters a freeway oneself. On a recent trip to Sao Paulo, Brazil, I discovered traffic jams that were the worst I'd ever experienced. One can get locked up in a congested block for an hour or more, block after block, yet no one there honks the horn. To me, that was a radical social event, and in light of that experience, I realized for the first time that the continual horn honking that takes place in America, again related to moral recrimination, or in India, simple self-assertion without moral implications, is a social practice and not at all an inevitable component of driving in heavy traffic, as I believed it to be. After I returned to Los Angeles, I decided to take a no honking challenge. I resolved to never honk in LA except when it was necessary for avoiding a collision. What I discovered is that my days driving produced considerably less stress. During one of these days, I was late, in this case while arriving at the home of my cousin, who lived in a project of houses that has as more cul-de-sacs than throughways, those, cloverleaf winding suburban deals. Not wanting to arrive too late for dinner, I became anxious when I came upon two cars that were stopped in the middle of the road, impeding my passage. I deduced at once that the person in one of the cars was explaining some directions to the person in the other car. Recalling my no honking challenge, and that I myself often halt to ask for directions, I sat and waited patiently. I observed that the two of them were being friendly and considerate, so I celebrated them instead of pressing them out of their social harmony by insisting upon my priority. Practical Buddhism consists of events this small, but they quickly add up. Yet many people run around the city subsuming others under their own agendas. It may be that the way that driving automobiles individualizes public life has set people into continuously competitive relations, and I have often wondered whether one benefit of public transport might be to foster more sociality than can occur when a single person in each car has to vie with other, quote, individuals for increasingly scarce road space. Pardon me. I don't know, because in the subway, I don't think there's that much sociality. We don't know. We have to rebut this. Somebody write a nice essay and mail it to him. Not me, I'm too lazy. On the other hand, one can use challenging situations like these for learning how to practice generosity and overcoming competitiveness. The average American might think, why on earth would I wish to surrender my advantage? Your quote, advantage. But I have a close Indian friend now living in Portland who spent the decade as a rickshaw driver in India. He was my rickshaw driver in Mysore during the 90s, and who informed me recently, rickshaw driving taught me many great things. It taught me tolerance. It taught me about people. It taught me patience. Rickshaw driving gave me everything, especially contentment. And you cannot discover that easily. So it is possible to turn any adverse circumstances into an occasion for practice. One can learn a good deal by looking for how people practice patience in heavy traffic, and one can learn even more by being patient oneself. Once, while I was riding a full bus in Santos, Brazil, a potential passenger arrived at the bus a mere second after the driver had closed the doors. Many bus drivers would have opened the door, for he had not yet begun his departure. The potential passenger pleaded with the driver to let him on, raising his index finger as if to say, just one more person cannot do any harm. But the driver was eager to be on his way and put his foot on the gas pedal. Instead of being angry, the supplicant waved his hand in a sweet farewell that indicated, all right, I understand, have a nice day. He was not angry. I wonder how many people throughout the world would have shouted an epithet or raised a fist at one who contravened their self-interest in that way. I wonder. In Italy, I'll tell you, they sure would. It is common enough in Los Angeles, that is for sure. This Brazilian was admirable. I hope to emulate him one day when my Buddhist practice improves. A very humble man, great guy. It is said that when another becomes angry with us or shows disrespect, We should accept that person as one's teacher of patience and be grateful for the opportunity to be exposed to one's own impatience. The red lights of the world are excellent teachers of patience, and not relying upon one's horn to relieve that impatience is a good way to start practicing patience. In fact, honking a horn, I found, does not relieve you of any impatience at all. It makes it worse. Come on, right? In this respect, I'm very guilty. After some time practicing not honking, one can progress to cultivating a bit of gratitude for each red light because it offers one additional opportunity to generate a bout of calm. Yeah. Some people carry Om Mani Padme Hum at the light. There is no true coming or going anyway. Oh boy, he lays it on now. And we only travel in circles. In the right perspective, there are no delays. Wow. Great writer. Now, let's see. This is about managing it's called putting off until tomorrow what one can do today. I'm a master at that. Procrastinate now is my motto. Anyway, this is about your body's autonomic nervous system. It's how to calm down and get a good night's sleep, basically. That's it. Cold. Not much Buddhism in, but there is. It's his whole being is Buddhist. And he's an excellent Ashtanga yoga practitioner. He's had the best teachers. He practices every day. Well, let him talk. Let me shut up. Page 99, chapter 19. Putting off until tomorrow what one can do today. Optimizing our potential does not always mean to perform more or to be more active. We fill our lives up daily with activities. Some of these activities are able to calm us. Yoga would be one example, reading a good book another, and being with a good friend is a third. Other activities can speed us up, quickening our mental energies and stirring up our adrenal juices. Either kind of activity may be desirable at different times, and the skill and means involves knowing which activity is best to engage in on any particular occasion. Our mundane lives consist of exercising this skill and means on a continuous basis. Pardon me. We got lousy air today here. What did I do? I burned incense. I made it worse. In contemporary society, Dr. Lieberman goes on, optimizing a situation frequently demands becoming more active, even when our physical and spiritual health may benefit more by our being less active. Our body requires some calm in order for the immune response to function well. If we are always tense, the adrenaline will flow, which brings us additional energy at the expense of our immune system. Those times when the body functions primarily in its autonomic nervous system, and when the immune response can be most fully activated, such as during sleep, meditation, or during relaxing activities, each day our body has different needs, and we should develop some body wisdom to recognize those needs, which can even change during the course of a day. To mindlessly keep doing, quote, doing, may be to exercise more brute ignorance than skill in means. That is one of the most important lessons yoga can teach. Page 100. One thing I find too activating is working at a computer terminal late at night, especially when there are bugs in the software that require solution. Don't do it. He continues, at most times I accept computer obstinacy as a cerebral challenge, like any good puzzle. Getting printers to function smoothly, downloading the right driver, sorting out a malfunctioning iPod, getting wireless connectivity to function, or whatever it might be, are inevitable parts of living with computers. There is nothing wrong with such activities in themselves, but when one wishes to calm down from a busy day and prepare for a night of restful sleep, it may be best to leave such puzzle solving and screen gazing for the next day. We are inviting trouble when prior to our sleep we get our nervous system stressed by undertaking frenzied tasks as part of our daily productive work, so that the nervous system will keep on running at the same level of speed past the time for it to quit, and we become unable to slow it down. It has its own, you'll find this out. So this is very good mindfulness of body mindfulness of feelings and stuff. So, moderating the level of our nervous activity is nothing like turning a light switch on and off. Our level of nervous activity has its own momentum, and it requires some time to slow it down by gradually habituating it to progressively slower tasks. Even though we may have 90 minutes available for computer hacking before we have to go to bed, for example, it may be that we will find ourselves unable to, quote, shut down our own biocomputer as easily as we can our terminal. If that's the situation, then it behooves us to spend that 90 minutes finding a more relaxing activity in order to commence the process of lowering the level of stress in preparation for a night's sleep. Valuable talk here. Valuable. Stargazing or book reading will produce better results. I have also forbidden myself to use a computer during the first hour after awakening. Yay! The opportunity to work quietly in the morning sunlight with a single-minded concentration focused peacefully upon something profound, which can vary among writing, meditation, and reading the most challenging text currently resting on my desk, is too precious to surrender to the Red Bull-like jolt that connecting with the internet can give. Red Bull-like jolt connecting to the jolt. I like that. While the internet promises to deliver the world, too frequently it delivers superficialities that masquerade as important. So I delay it for that first, most productive hour. Very wise. He continues, it is good to offer our body calm at the beginning and conclusion of each day. On occasion, the body will be exhausted from too much physical labor, or one can feel run down just by successfully fighting off a cold. The body has its own ways. The ability required may consist of simply recognizing accurately what the body needs and not forcing ourselves beyond our optimal capabilities. There are always contradictions too, since sometimes we may be able to enhance our natural capacity by pushing ourselves a little bit past the point at which we wish to stop. There's a typo that said, where we wish to stop. But the key words here, a little bit, which is something quite different from on and on. So that's a framework, all right, a little bit, and then that's it. The critical mistake is being unable to recognize the on and on before it occurs. That on and on can eventually lead to madness. We must learn to act wisely. Yesterday was a day of endless activities. This is his day. Amazing. Yesterday was a day of endless activities, all congenial to me. I surfed for 2 hours, oh, that's nice, in beautiful Baja, California, Baja, Mexico, rather. I surfed for 2 hours, read 40 pages from a challenging text on Buddhist epistemology, probably in Tibetan, because he's fluent, wrote some letters on the computer, sent some emails via my satellite internet hookup, jogged 2 miles, and then commenced my 75-minute-long Ashtanga yoga practice on my roof. And then he split the atom. No, I know what else he did. He continues, my body was tired, not so much from the active day as from a series of active days, and I realized that it was time to rest. Midway through my asana practice, I fell into some deep relaxation in between each position, and so I cultivated them. My nerves seemed to bathe in the conscious relaxation I was able to find while dwelling in between each one. Rest between postures. The day's yoga asana practice resided not in the actual positions themselves, but in the resting between them. The actual position taking. I was amazed at how peaceful I felt there on my roof, looking at the ever-blue Baja sky. Finally, I suspended my practice halfway through and just relaxed in what recent yogis call yoga nidra, N-I-D-R-A-A, I don't know what that means. But the name is probably more of a distraction than an aid. It is simply surrendering to some rest when your body is seeking it. After my practice, I came downstairs and cooked dinner, and I had planned to solve my printing problems, 2 computers and 2 printers, with none of them functioning together. I knew it would be a, quote, busy activity if I was to have any success at it. My judgment was that I should not be restirring my nervous system after it had finally settled itself into a sweet purr. and I feared that any new busyness might intervene with a good night's sleep. So I abandoned the last of my, quote, day's chores and started a Western novel by Larry McMurtry. Well, that's his thing. I read for 90 minutes and then dropped into 9 full hours of recuperative sleep, arising early to take up my agenda again the next day. Not a bad life, you know. He was going to study Lekshe Ningpo with Chungla Rinpoche, and he started to arrange. And then Nikki said, "Well, he suddenly never returned." Well, he had heart problems. He had a congenital heart problem from his family, and then they fixed that. They gave him a fake valve. That valve became infected, and he had to go back in again. So he lost a lot of time in hospital. He recovered. He surfs. He translates. He teaches at Sarah. Wonderful human being. And did I mention he wrote a book on coffee? Which made him my friend immediately. So, I'm going to go right back to Geshe Sopa because we didn't finish explaining where we left off in the LAM Rim. And I'm also going to skip some of the gobbledygook, not gobbledygook, but some of the stuff that's just side discussion, like certain arhats, how they sometimes come out with harsh words, like a Tourette syndrome person. That's a natural thing with arhats. When they do this, it's probably left over from, their non-arhat life. They're not collecting any bad karma because they are beyond establishing new afflictions. They have seen emptiness direct. So that's one of the things he mentioned, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm going to go to this section on page 260, Geshe Sopa's Steps on the Path to Enlightenment, volume 5. Objects negated by reasoning. Remember, there's objects negated by the path, negated by reasoning. So, in order to cultivate the direct realization of emptiness, Geshe Sopa says on page 260, and eliminate the objects negated by the path, we need to identify and refute the objects negated by reasoning. Start conception. Refuting an object of negation through reasoning means refuting something that we hold to exist, but in fact does not exist at all. We talked about this last week. And he quotes Nagarjuna's refutation of objection. Nagarjuna says, it is like someone thinking that a magical emanation of a woman is an actual woman. Then the arising of this wrong understanding is stopped by another emanation. So the argument of how do you stop things with non-inherently existent words and blah, 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 which they still work. That's the answer. Geshe Sopa continues, things have no inherent nature of their own, but they appear to exist by way of their own inherent nature to people, ordinary people like us. We can't believe this. We can't believe that everything we see is not the way it is, but it's the truth when you apply reason. This is similar to an illusion created by a magician that seems real to the audience. Words are also like magical illusions in that they do not exist inherently as they appear. Yes, there's a sense of the inherent existence of words that we have, the inherent existence of thoughts that we have. It's not just, things we see with our outside world. So bear that in mind. Yet, the non-inherently existent words of a teaching reverse the grasping that arises in the minds of those who consider them to exist inherently. Nagarjuna's commentary on the refutation of objections says, so he writes the refutation of objections and then writes an auto-commentary. He's covered. He's got the market going. Nagarjuna says, someone thinks that a magical emanation of a woman who is empty of any such nature is truly a woman. Thus, attachment arises owing to this wrong understanding. That wrong understanding is reversed by a magical emanation created by the Buddha, or Tathagata, he says, or his senior disciples. Similarly, like the magical emanation of the woman, all things are empty of inherent nature, and my words, which are empty like a magical emanation, reverse any grasping at things as inherently existent. So, non-inherently existent things function. If they were inherently existent, they couldn't function. They'd be in a static state. So Geshe Sopa goes on page 261. And I'll be checking the time like a real annoying nerd to make sure we stay on schedule. Tsong-kha-pa says that here Nagarjuna is speaking about two types of objects of negation: incorrect grasping at the object incorrectly held to be inherently existent. The first is a subject, a type of mind, the grasping mind. That's something wrong with that. And the second is the object, what the mind is holding. The grasping mind sees a certain type of object. What they see in that object isn't there. Although both of these are to be negated, the latter is the primary object of negation, the appearance of inherent existence. The object held to be inherently existent. That is because we have to negate the grasped object in order to reverse the mind that grasps it. It's not there, so why am I busy assigning this value to it? That's what he's more or less saying. Get rid of the sense of inherent existence of your field of vision, your thought, or whatever. It's not there. Why am I hanging on to it? Your horrible feeling is not inherently existent. Why am I hanging on and getting beaten down by it? The practical application of understanding emptiness. You have to think that way. It helps us. We have to know that the grasped object is not really there. To negate the inherent existence of the self and of phenomena, we use a logical reason such as dependent arising. If something can be negated by valid reasoning, it must be non-existent. If it does not exist as an object of knowledge, it does not exist rather as an object of. So if something can be negated by valid reasoning, that's it. It's not there. We can't do it by saying, "Oh, that's not inherent existence. I don't know. I see that, but it's not. It's not. It's not." You have to reason through this to understand how it's not there. If it were inherently existent, then it would look like this, or would act like that. But no, it doesn't. And even though instinctively we're very happy with the world of inherent existence, it's not doing us any favors. It's keeping us in samsara. So we have to look into these reasons carefully. Take your time. There's no rush. You're not in the classroom with the teacher on your back. You're on your own. Boy, are we on our own. But we have good teachers. So it does not exist as an object of knowledge. It's not there, okay? Even though this object of negation is totally non-existent, we need to negate it because the self-grasping mind wrongly holds it to exist. So to get rid of that self-grasping mind, it has to be convinced logically that it's not there. Why are you wasting your time? I'm talking to myself. I do that. You have to think that way. This distorted mind attaches something extra, which is not there, to the basis of negation and holds it to exist in that incorrect way. That's imputation. That's in putting something there that's not there. To stop this wrong view from arising, we have to negate its object. Negating the object held by this wrong view is not like destroying something that actually exists. It's not like breaking a clay pot with a hammer. I'll get rid of it. It's not that kind of destroying. The point of logical refutation is to recognize that what does not exist in the first place is simply not there. When we generate an understanding that such a thing is not there, then that wrong view incorrectly holding it to exist is reversed. Now, we may understand this, and we even go through the logical steps. However, so strong is the momentum towards seeing inherent existence, we have to meditate and familiarize ourselves constantly with the opposite view that we instinctively take. We have to say logic says this, this, and this, with this reason, it can't be that way. Yeah, but I see it can't be that way. It can't be, and slowly turn that momentum, eons of wrong views around so we get out of samsara. That's the point. It'll be nice. I can't wait. He continues, last paragraph on page 261. In general, logic is used to refute what is unreal and to prove what is real. Makes sense? It cannot prove the existence of something that did not exist before. It is not the creation of something new, like a sprout arising from a seed. Logic simply serves to make us recognize things as they are. A neutral position, not the position of our constantly grasping mind. We need to call in a neutral observer here. We need a consultant. Logic is the consultant, and it's free. Giving rise to definite understanding is what it means to prove something. What do you mean by proving something? Giving rise to definite understanding, that you prove it to yourself. Oh yeah, okay. When we prove that something is empty of inherent existence, we understand that it never has been inherently existent. Nagarjuna's refutation of objection says, objection, Your Honor. That would be negating something that even without those words does not exist. Replied, the answer is those words does not exist gives rise to understanding. They do not eliminate anything. You understand that it doesn't exist. It doesn't take something that exists and say, all right, now it doesn't exist because I said no. So that's what he's saying. Here the Geshe Sopa explains on 262. Here the words does not exist do not eliminate something that exists. They merely indicate that nothing exists inherently or from its own side. That's another way of looking at inherent existence. Things exist from their own side, not depending on a designating consciousness. Words do not make something non-existent. Words just clear away the wrong conceptions, if they're used right, about things. Wrong conceptions about things. Words give rise to a correct understanding. Nagarjuna's commentary on the refutation of objections says, so here goes the argument again. I know, maybe a little repetitive, but we are so inculcated with the wrong view of life and suffer because of it. We have to go over these again and again, make an internal convincing of ourselves, a certainty, and then stay with that till it becomes non-conceptual. Objection, says Nagarjuna's piece, if you establish the negation of something that even without your words does not exist, then what do your words, all things have no inherent nature, accomplish? Okay, it doesn't exist, so what are you telling us that for? The answer is, reply, I will explain. Sit down, shut up. No, the words, all things have no inherent nature, do not make things lack inherent nature. We had this before in Tsong-kha-pa's version. This is the same thing, the Devadatta story. But in that they do lack inherent nature, to say things have no inherent nature brings about that understanding. For example, in a case where Devadatta is not at home, someone says, Devadatta's at home. Another person who knows he's not there says, he is not. Devadatta is not at home. The words Devadatta is not at home do not make Devadatta not at home. He wasn't there in the first place. The words only show that Devadatta is not at home. It clears up where he is. Likewise, the words things have no inherent nature do not make things lack inherent nature. They never had it. All things have no inherent nature, like an illusory person. However, immature beings, here we are ignorant about the lack of a real nature. Meaning's a real nature, then. It's almost like, that's it, and I'm up against it. You're not up against it. No. So these words are to make ordinary beings who are confused by ignorance and superimpose an inherent nature understand that there is no inherent nature. Therefore, it is not correct to say to me, if there is no inherent nature, the lack of inherent nature is established without words, so what do your words, there is no inherent nature, accomplish? What are you doing? You shouldn't say that. I know repetitive, but repetitive is the name of the game. It has to be burned in. You're really, really smart and have good roots. Maybe you don't. Then you'll know. You'll see emptiness directly. Boy, I think you'll know. I don't. Haven't been there. As Nagarjuna clearly explains, Geshe Sopa says, we should realize that the purpose of these words is to bring out about the understanding that there is no inherent nature. Nothing exists inherently. However, some people contend that using words to refute or prove things does not accomplish anything. No. How are you going to get out of samsara? We use words. What does not exist does not need to be refuted, they say, and what is already existent can't be refuted. In this sense, everything is free of negation and proof. People who engage in many refutations and proofs are simply fascinated by long words and drawn-out expressions. This is the counter-argument. Tsong-kha-pa replies that this comment is just senseless babble. I see, you must have been listening to C-SPAN. It shows that the protagonist has no idea of what is to be negated or established by means of the path or by reasoning. The guy's off base. He's got the wrong gestalt, or whatever you want to view of the situation. The object negated by paths, the afflictions and their seeds, as well as the obstructions to omniscience, the imprints left by them, exist, so they cannot be refuted by logic. Logic is used to refute the objects negated by reason. The afflictions are there, and you use techniques to suppress and get rid of them. But logic is used to refute the objects negated by reason, which do not exist. The afflictions actually exist. You know, we're encumbered by them. However, how do you get rid of them? By seeing that they are not inherently existent. And how do you do that? You apply logic, in addition to the other techniques. This opponent argues that there is no need for logical proof or refutation because words do not alter reality. He fails to recognize that logic is used to refute the non-existent objects of misconception. Bring about an understanding, that's all. We can all agree that logic does not alter reality, it simply establishes it. Logic proves the real and disproves the unreal. Take that to the bank and put that on your bumper of your car. Logic proves the real and disproves the unreal. So these ideas should give us confidence in logic and not back away when they're studying this for. It's a really useful tool, so they say. I have to study it myself. This opponent's argument, as Geshe Sopo goes on page 263, this opponent's argument is not only senseless babble, it's self-contradictory. He begins by saying if something exists, then we can't refute it, and if it does not exist, then we do not need to refute it. Then he uses this statement as a reason to refute others' use of proof and refutation. He is trying to refute others and prove his own assertions by saying it is not suitable to refute or prove anything. Well, here he goes trying to do it. It is inconsistent for him to try to disprove someone else's use of logic by using his own logical reasoning. So, it is important, Geshe Sopo goes on, to refute and prove things because everyone has thousands of mistaken ideas. And logic's the only thing that, that's wrong. It's the neutral party that points out. There are no unlimited number of objects of knowledge without knowing the truth. People perceive all of them incorrectly and usually hold them to exist as they are perceived. Everything. This is fundamentally due to ignorance, the big I. All the mental afflictions arise from ignorance. Under their influence, we create contaminated karma, and karma gives rise to rebirth in samsara. To stop this process, we must understand reality, and to understand reality, we must correctly engage in refutation and proof. You don't have to become a great debater, you just have to do the internal debate in your mind and the understanding back and forth. You have to imagine yourself into the courtyards of the monastery banging your hands together. That's nice, I'm not knocking that, that's the best. We can work with logic ourselves. So, we must understand reality. To understand reality, we must correctly engage, that's the word to emphasize, in refutation and proof. Correctly means that we begin by listening and studying. Then we engage in analysis. And finally, we meditate on what we have established, what we have confidently established to ourselves, not to the crowd. Through this practice, some things are stopped and others are developed. How can we gain the knowledge necessary to achieve our goal if we do not refute or prove anything? Correct reasoning counteracts wrong views and distorted conceptions. That's what correct reasoning does. Counteracts wrong views and distorted conceptions based on those wrong views. A view is the way reality is. We think reasoning back from that, we create concepts that aren't accurate on a certain level. It can also prove to us what exists. Valid reasoning helps us to eliminate misconceptions and to develop definite, unmistaken understanding. Those who want to eradicate wrong views and develop realizations, especially with regard to ultimate truth, should follow the logical treatises of the great master like Nagarjuna. And we could start with simple things like letter to a friend, even the precious garland's a little heavier, but it's good advice. So there's levels of Nagarjuna. You don't have to go right to the Mula Madhyamaka or some of his other works that are somewhat heavy. We could start with Precious Garland, which Rinpoche always recommended. You could also go to Shantideva, especially the 9th chapter. Tsong-kha-pa, Geshe Sopo goes on, and let me check the time, we got a few more minutes. Tsong-kha-pa considers an opponent's question. You said that logical refutation destroys a distorted way of holding an object and generates a non-distorted realization by negating the incorrectly held object. So what kind of mind holds to an object in such a way as to be refuted by this logic? Yeah, what kind of mind? Yeah. Tsong-kha-pa replies that although generally speaking there is no limit to the wrong ways of perceiving and holding things, We must determine as quickly as possible which distorted consciousness rather, among the 84,000 mental afflictions, you need a computer to get through that, is the root of our suffering. What is it? We need to identify precisely the distorted thinking that gives rise to all the other faults. And that's the next, distorted thinking or ignorance that is the root of samsara. So that's what we'll discuss next week. So it's there's a big argument we'll cover next class, not next week, next Wednesday. Some say, well, the root of samsara is the reifying view, view of the transitory collection as something, reifying that. And someone said, well, I thought ignorance was. Ignorance is the overseeing thing. Within ignorance, the overseeing, the general category. Reifying ignorance, jik-ten, latagba, whatever they used to call that, is a subset of that. That's all. It's the specific. So it's not opposite. One is encumbered by the other. That's all. So let us see for whom we will pray. Yes, you're here, someone said. I hope so. But not the way we think we are until we're in our hats. Happy anniversary, Tenzin. Oh, yes. Rebecca, yes. Hi, Rebecca. 2 Wilsons are on here tonight. No one to pray. Don't know if it's you or me or Facebook, but no pic or sound for the last 10 minutes or so. Darren, can you verify that? I don't know. Darren's monitoring, so I would get a text. I don't know. We got to get out of this. So let's see what we can do over the next few months now that things are slowing down and we have help in the form of the 1-year anniversary of Tenzin Karuna's ordination, Jackie Healy. She'll be coming in on the 15th. So, and she will stay till the end of August. She will teach. I will get a rest once and for all. Sutra of the Recollection, Noble 3 Jewels. I prostrate to the Omniscient One. Thus the Buddha, Bhagavata, Tathagata, Arahat, Samyak, Sang Buddha, the learned and virtuous one, the Sugata, the knower of the world, the charioteer and tamer of beings, the unsurpassable one, the teacher of devas and humans is the Buddha Bhagavat. The Tathagata is in accord with all merit. He does not waste the roots of virtue. He is completely ornamented with all patience. He is the basis of the treasures of merit. He is adorned with the minor marks. He blossoms with the flowers of the major marks. His activity is timely and appropriate. Seeing him, he is without disharmony. He brings true joy to those who long with faith. His knowledge cannot be overpowered. His strength cannot be challenged. He is the teacher of all sentient beings. He is the father of bodhisattvas. He is the king of noble ones. He is the guide of those who journey to the city of nirvana. He possesses immeasurable wisdom. He possesses inconceivable confidence. His speech is completely pure. His melody is pleasing. One never has enough of seeing him. His form is incomparable. He's not stained by the realm of desire. He's not stained by the realm of form. He's not affected by the formless realm. He is completely liberated from suffering. He is completely and utterly liberated from the skandhas. He is not possessed with dhatus as ayatarnas are controlled. He has completely cut the knots. He is completely liberated from extreme torment. He is liberated from craving. He has crossed over the river. He is perfected in all the wisdoms. He abides in the wisdom of the Buddha Bhagavats who rise in the past, present, and future. He does not abide in nirvana. He abides in the ultimate perfection. He dwells on the bhumi where he sees all sentient beings. All these are the perfect virtues of the greatness of the Buddha Bhagavat. The Holy Dharma is good at the beginning, good in the middle, and good at the end. Its meaning is excellent. Its words are excellent. It is uncorrupted. It is completely perfect and completely pure. It completely purifies. The Bhagavat teaches the Dharma well. It brings complete vision. It is free from sickness. It is always timely. It directs one further. Seeing it fulfills one's purpose. It brings discriminating insight for the wise. The Dharma, which is taught by the Bhagavat, is revealed properly in the Vinaya. It is renunciation. It causes one to arrive at perfect enlightenment. It is without contradiction. It is pithy. It is trustworthy and puts an end to the journey. As for the Sangha of the Great Yana, they enter completely, they enter insightfully, they enter straightforwardly, they enter harmoniously. They are worthy of veneration with joined palms. They are worthy of receiving prostration. They are a field of glorious merit. They are completely capable of receiving all gifts. They are an object of generosity. They are a great object of complete generosity. the protector who possesses great kindness, the omniscient teacher, the basis of oceans of merit and virtue, I prostrate to the Tathagata. Pure, the cause of freedom from passion. Virtuous, liberating from the lower realms. This alone is the supreme ultimate truth. I prostrate to the Dharma, which is peace. Having been liberated, they show the path to liberation. They are fully dedicated to the disciplines. They are a holy field of merit and possess virtue. I prostrate to the Sangha. I prostrate to the Buddha, the leader. I prostrate to the Dharma, the protector. I prostrate to the Sangha, the community. I prostrate respectfully and always to these three. The Buddha's virtues are inconceivable. The Dharma's virtues are inconceivable. The Sangha's virtues are inconceivable. Having faith in these inconceivables, therefore the fruitions are inconceivable. May they be born in a completely pure realm. And now, as a further cause for the swift return of Rato Chungla Rinpoche, His Holiness recommends we recite prayer for the flourishing J. Tsong-kha-pa's teachings. It's on the website, of course. Though he's the father, producer of all conquerors, as a conqueror's son, he produced the thought of upholding the conqueror's dharma in infinite worlds. Through this truth, may the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. When of yore, in the presence of Buddha Indraketu, he made his vow, the conqueror and his offspring praised his powerful courage. Through this truth, may the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. That the lineage of pure view and conduct might spread, he offered a white crystal rosary to the sage, who gave him a conch and prophesied. Through this truth, may the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. His pure view free of eternity or destruction. His pure meditation cleansed of dark fading and fog. His pure conduct practiced according to the conqueror's orders. May the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. Learned, since he extensively sought out learning. Reverent, rightly applying it to himself. Good, dedicating all for beings and the doctrine. May the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. Through being sure that all scriptures, definitive and interpretive, were without contradiction, advice for one person's practice, he stopped all misconduct. May the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. Listening to explanations of the three Pitakas, realized teachings, practice of the three trainings, his skilled and accomplished life story is amazing. May the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. Outwardly calmed and subdued by the hearer's conduct, inwardly trusting in the two stages practice, he allied without clash the good paths of Sutra and Tantra. May the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. Combining voidness explained as the causal vehicle with great bliss achieved by method, the effect vehicle, heart essence of 80,000 Dharma bundles, may the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. By the power of the ocean of oath-bound doctrine protectors, like the main guardians of the three beings' paths, the quick-acting Lord Vaishravana Karmayama, may the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. In short, by the lasting of glorious Gurus' lives, by the earth being full of good, learned, reverend holders of the teaching, and by the increase of power of its patrons, may the Karko Losang's teachings flourish. And now we have, as usual, 8 verses on training the mind. And I will, after this, we'll have a few minutes to discuss coming attractions at the Tibet Center Theater. 8 verses on training the mind. With the determination to accomplish the highest welfare of all sentient beings who surpass even a wish-granting jewel, I will learn to hold them supremely dear. Whenever I associate with others, I will learn to think of myself as the lowest amongst all, and respectfully hold others to be supreme from the very depths of my heart. In all actions, I will learn to search into my mind, and as soon as a disturbing emotion arises, endangering myself and others, I will firmly face and avert it. I will learn to cherish ill-natured beings and those oppressed by strong misdeeds and sufferings as if I had found a precious treasure, difficult to find. When others out of jealousy treat me badly, with abuse, slander, and so on, I will learn to take all loss and offer the victory to them. When the one whom I had benefited with great hope unreasonably hurts me very badly, I will learn to view that person as an excellent spiritual guide. In short, I will learn to offer to everyone, without exception, all help and happiness directly and indirectly, and respectfully take upon myself all harm and suffering of my mothers. I will learn to keep all these practices undefiled by the stains of the 8 worldly concerns, and by understanding all phenomena as like illusions, important, be released from the bondage of attachment. So our next Dharma class will be the 5th, right? Wednesday night at 7 o'clock. there is no tarot this weekend. On the 19th of July will be Reverend Karuna Jackie Healy. Her first teaching will be on a Wednesday night, the 19th, from the Tibet Center Parsonage House in South Orange. And she will be speaking on, she's preparing it for quite a while with her teacher, Geshe Lakdor. She'll be speaking on the Wheel of Sharp Weapons. It's a mind training text, which we've had a bit here before with Rinpoche. So, but let's see what she has. So it'll be very good. And Nikki should be around at the end of the month or so, mid to the end of the month. So we'll have an ordained presence in our center, which is very good. So it should progress beyond the little social event that it is. So thank you so much for your patience and listening. Stay safe. Big love to all of you.